His attitude changed all off season, and now him and Bullock are listed as the number 1 and 2 backs according to the latest report. So that's probably who you're looking at getting most of the carries. But then you've also got a transfer from North Carolina and Hunter Furr, who's 6 foot, 220 pounds, who's going to be more of the physical back, which ECU didn't have last year. They had a lot of scat backs, a lot of fast guys, but Hunter Furr will be a physical back. And then there's a freshman, Chris Harrison, who has really been impressive in every practice. He had offers from Wisconsin and a couple of other schools coming out of high school. So there's a lot of depth there, a lot more than they had last year. It's just a matter of who is going to step up and be the main guy, and can they gel, come September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and going to the other side of the ball here, defensively, your strength seems to be the linebacking core.
Yep.
Similar to us, we've got 2 All-American or likely All-American players there. But so, including your linebacker, who else is a strength for you guys, and who is the performer in the linebacking core that we should look out for?
Linebacker Jeremy Grove is a rising sophomore. He was a freshman All-American. He's an inside linebacker in the 3-4 scheme. He had 120-plus tackles last year as a freshman, making his first career starts.
Wow.
6'1", 233 pounds. And the scary thing is he played through a shoulder injury to the last half of the season that actually required off-season surgery the day after the season ended. So he had, 130-plus tackles with that type of injury, which says a lot about the guy. And an outside linebacker, which is really the position ECU they need to see an improvement from pass rushing-wise this year. Because, they have a lot of talent there, and they're really deep at that position, but they need to get more pressure, which is key in the 3-4 scheme. As you guys probably know, you need the outside pass rushers in 3-4 in the outside linebacker position. So in order to do that, they moved the defensive end, Darrell Johnson, back to outside linebacker, who's 6'1", 260 pounds, and his primary motive is going to be get after the passer from the outside. In a 3-4, now he's going to be going up against, one offensive lineman instead of at the defensive end with his hand in the dirt. He was probably going to be going up against 2 and taking up blockers. So Darrell Johnson is a guy that has really had a strong offseason. He's a junior. Like I said, 260-plus pounds. He's going to be a real tough matchup off the edge. As far as looking back at inside linebacker, the team is 2 to 3 deep at inside linebacker at both spots, really. Kyle Tudor and Daniel Drake are 2 upperclassmen that split time as starters last year, opposite of Jeremy Grove. And then you got behind Grove, you got a guy who started in the past in Ty Holmes. So 4 of the 6 guys on the 2 deep inside linebacker have starting experience in the past. And that's really the deepest position, like you guys have said. So that's pretty much it for the linebacker core.
Yeah, that's it's interesting you say that. We actually had a very, very similar situation. We had it was kind of necessitated by injuries and, some kind of off-the-field stuff for us as well. But we have a guy that, Deuce Robinson, who was a defensive end last year. He's 6'5", 245, and he just made the same thing, made the shift from being a kind of down lineman to the outside linebacker, and we're trying to, we're hoping to get some pressure on the quarterback with him as well. So it sounds like the schemes are running pretty similar in that regard, and I think that one concern, with position changes and things like that, is we do have some players on our side that are kind of inexperienced in their position and, might be kind of cause for concern. Are there, what areas do you think that East Carolina could be a little vulnerable, whether it's because of, inexperience or, kind of position changes or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely think as far as vulnerability, ECU is on paper vulnerable in the secondary, on defensively speaking. I mean, if you look at the depth chart, there is a lot of upperclassmen in the secondary. The problem is you're breaking in 3 new starters, and Jacoby Jenkins at one of the corner spots, and then at the other corner spot you have Leonard Pope. Both of those guys have seen gain experience in the past. The problem is they haven't started that much. Now, Pope did fill in versus South Carolina last year and performed really well. Jenkins has had a lot of trouble in the past. He's always had the talent and the speed, but he tends to get beat a lot. So they brought in a JUCO corner by the name of Adonis Armstrong, who he was from Hines, Mississippi Junior College, and he's really performed well this offseason and is pushing Jenkins to the best of his ability. So they have experience there. It's just a matter of who can step up. At free safety, they do have their one returning starter in the secondary, and Damon Magazoo, who's just an absolute gamer. His dad is an offensive line coach for the Denver Broncos, so he's been a coach's son throughout his career, so he knows all about football, and he's started since he was a true freshman at times. So that position's pretty much set. At strong safety, they have a battle going on between Lamar Ivy, who's a sophomore, and then another guy who's a JUCO transfer as well, who actually came from the same community college as Adonis Armstrong came from. So that position is going to be vital at strong safety. And definitely, I mean, App State with their I was looking at, I've been looking at their team this season, and they have a lot of speed, a lot of talent at receiver. So that's definitely going to be a big matchup to watch at cornerback. Can ECU's inexperienced corners, you stay with those guys? The big key with ECU, their front seven is going to have to create some pressure and take some pressure off of the secondary. So that's one of the good things about ECU. They're really stacked up front, and that good front seven could cover up a little bit of the inexperienced secondary.
Right, and I mean, it sounds everything that we've talked about so far. It sounds like the two teams are actually very, very similar. Whereas the only change that we are not changed, but the only constant we have is we know who our quarterback is, though, so far. That said, obviously ECU plays at the BCS level, so presumably they're getting better recruits, better athletes in there than App will. So with that, what's your prediction for this game?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's App State, obviously, in 2009 when ECU got off to a really strong start in the game, and then App State came back, just on fire in the second half. That was a really scary game for ECU fans, and I think a lot of them, they want to predict, ECU is going to take it to App this time, but they also are cautious because they know App, like ECU, when ECU goes up against a BCS team like North Carolina, Virginia Tech, they play with more fire than normal. And I think App will come in here, and I think that they'll play with the same intensity that they did last time. And, they'll probably play with more intensity than you usually see. So it's really a tough game to predict. And I think App also will have a chip on the shoulder after losing the way they did to Virginia Tech last year. I don't think that they're that bad of a team. I think, they're a solid team. And I think with the quarterback position at App, and, Jamal Jackson, I was watching some of his highlights yesterday, really talented guy, 6'3", 200-plus pounds with a strong arm. He could give ECU's defense some fits. He's also got good mobility, so testing a weak secondary, or not really a weak secondary, but an inexperienced secondary in ECU is going to be a big matchup to watch. Offensively for ECU, they have a lot of talent, like I was going over earlier, but it's a matter of gelling a new quarterback, running backs that are going to be splitting carries, offensive line, they've got to stay healthy. So it's going to be a good game. My official prediction is 38-21 ECU, but I think it'll be a really close game. I really could see if ECU turns the ball over, which is one thing we haven't talked about today. ECU was dead last in the nation in turnovers last year, in turnover margin. So ECU, if they don't turn the ball over, they'll be fine. But Appalachian State has a lot of talent and speed on defense, and they can create turnovers if ECU isn't careful. And, if ECU, last year they gave up 10 touchdowns when the defense wasn't on the field, which actually skewed the total defense and scoring defense numbers. But, it is what it is, and ECU can't afford to turn the ball over like they did last year. But if they do, I really think App State has a chance at winning this game. But if not, I think ECU wins it.
Great.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement there. I mean, I really think that, obviously as much as, from our perspective, as much as we'd love for App to just, go in there and pull off the win, I think that I agree. I think it's definitely possible. I think it's we're young, but we've got a lot of talent. But I think we are going to have to take care of the ball ourselves, as well as force some turnovers from East Carolina. We're really going to have to execute sharp to win that game. And I think it's just one of those things where if both teams come out and play their best, then I think East Carolina comes out on top. But if we are able to force some turnovers and get some big plays out of our special teams, we've got a shot. But I think that's probably a pretty accurate prediction at this point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's about what I'm predicting as well, assuming both teams play perfect games. So that's the best part about football. You never know. One team can just be completely awful, and the underdog takes over. So you never know in football. And as the saying goes, any given Saturday, right? So, Stephen, thanks a lot for coming on with us tonight. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to a hard-fought battle on Saturday. And let's hope the heat stays away this time. Back in when we played last time, it was brutal out there. So.
Yeah, definitely, man. The good thing is I'll be up in the press box for this game. So last time I was in the stands as a fan, just bearing the heat. But hopefully I get some air conditioning this time around.
Yeah. Well, once again, we appreciate you coming on, Stephen, and you have a great night.
No problem. You guys too.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.
So, thank you once again, Stephen, for coming on. We can't say it enough. You didn't have to do that, but we really appreciate that to give our listeners a little feedback on the ECU team. And as Mike said while introducing the interview, that was recorded on Sunday, just because we couldn't, with the time, we couldn't get Stephen live with us. But earlier this week, ECU actually announced that Rio Johnson would be the starting quarterback against us. So Stephen was right in that regard, and it actually might be a little bit better for App because he isn't much of a runner. He's more of a pocket passer mold, and usually that's better for us. I guess in recent years it hasn't been so much with the switch to the 3-4, but no, usually a pocket passer is easier to contain than a scrambler. So, and then also noted, I realized that they're playing that back. I said that ECU was a BCS school getting BCS recruits. I apologize that I meant to say FBS. They are not BCS. They are in Conference USA. And then one last thing, a shout out to Timothy D. Love on Twitter, who also mentioned us about the show. So thanks, Timothy D. Love. We really appreciate it. So, Mike, what did you take from Stephen Igo's feedback on the ECU team?
Well, I thought I thought he had some really good, some really good insight. Obviously, he's somebody he's with him every day at practice. He sees him. He obviously has a very good pulse for the depth chart and how things are going. Because as you mentioned, he was correct in saying that he thought Rio Johnson was kind of the leading candidate to take the job of when nothing had really been said publicly, and that turned out to be true a few days later. And I think he pointed out some really interesting matchups. I think one area where Appalachian really has a chance to shine and to do some damage and kind of keep themselves in this game and keep it close and keep it competitive is going to be how our wide receivers do against their secondary. I mean, they have some inexperienced guys there in the defensive backfield, and as we obviously just got done talking about when we were speaking with Coach Stepp, we've got a lot of talent in our wide receiving core. So that's one battle I think we really need to take advantage of. He also mentioned that they're going to have a first-time starter at center, and that's something where on the other side of the ball and at defensive tackle, we've also got a first-time starter. And I think that's going to be another big matchup as well, and how Thomas Bronson at D tackle does facing off against their center, who's also getting his first start. And we've heard great things about Bronson all through camp, and if he's able to win that battle and blow their center off the ball and get in the backfield some, that is going to go a long way to determining how effective our defense as a whole is going to be, because as we all know, we need to win those battles up front to get a chance to get some push on their offensive line and get back there. So that's going to be a really big matchup for us. And as me and you and pretty much everybody else has mentioned who were here in the last couple of weeks, it's a lot of this is going to come down to how well we can move the ball on the ground. He mentioned they've got a great set of linebackers that they're healthy this year. And how we're able to move the ball on the ground is really going to be, if we're able to get first downs on the ground, then I think we've got a great chance to stay in this game and possibly win it late. Whereas if we they make us one-dimensional and we have to drop back and Jamal's got to throw the ball 35, 40 times, if we're not getting any push up front, then I think we're really going to struggle. But I think Stephen did a great job previewing it, kind of going over the strengths and weaknesses and